Hello, I'm First Officer Jim Watkins with the Strategic Preparedness and Strike Committee. With me today is our new Master Executive Council Chairman, Captain Chuck Dyer. Chuck, when did you assume the chairman position?
Jim, about a month ago on July 1st.
And how has it been since your introduction?
It's been hectic, trying to confer with committee chairs, establish priorities, kind of get the table set for what comes next.
And what do you see as our immediate challenges?
Well, clearly the immediate challenge is to conclude negotiations. We'd like to do that sooner rather than later. We also have to prepare for whatever eventuality. I mean, we'll hope for the best, plan for the worst. And to that end, I've been trying to look at our spending and also explore what will be involved if we have to access ALPA's Master Contingency Fund.
What can you tell our pilots about negotiations?
Well, I mean, it's taken forever, but we've accomplished something so far. But obviously what remains is the heavy lifting. So we're setting now with open sections in 412 and 25, the scheduling sections, 27, healthcare, 28, retirement, and Section 3, compensation. So these are big issues yet to be resolved.
What can you tell me about scheduling and quality of life issues?
Obviously, these are important areas. We're down to about a dozen or so open items. A couple of those are very problematic for us, but most of those we believe can be resolved, in short order. We're looking to really base our scheduling system on science-based rules, looking at better ways to operate so our guys can plan their lives more efficiently and operate more safely.
What can you tell me about healthcare?
Well, healthcare is kind of similar. It's a quality of life issue as well, and not just for our pilots, but for the families. Where we are in that, we're not fighting over the benefit now. That's not in question. We're going to protect our benefit. Where the disagreement is right now is over the funding. What are the premiums going to be? How much can those premiums increase year over year with medical inflation? And how is the excise tax that was created under the Affordable Care Act going to be paid? Those are the issues right now.
What is the excise tax and how does it affect us?
Well, the excise tax was a tax created on so-called Cadillac plans. The way it affects us is that we will tip into that territory about 2018, 2019, somewhere in that range. And when we get into that territory, it'll be a 40% tax on the benefit that goes above $27,500 for families, or more than single people. Single people at $10,200, and then the 40% tax kicks in.
So we're concerned about the excise tax and how that burden should be shared with the company.
Absolutely. I mean, we believe it, just like the rest of healthcare cost, should be a shared cost. So we're looking for a similar solution to that.
Retirement seems to be a major sticking point, one of the major sticking points in negotiations. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, retirement, is a main sticking point at this point. What the company's proposed does not meet with what we expect. And so retirement's hopefully going to get resolved. Hopefully the company will see the logic that we're bringing to the table in our proposal. And, as it stands today, that is potentially the biggest sticking point.
Can you talk about the defined benefit plan?
Before we get right to that, Jim, I mean, I just would say about our overall retirement structure, it has a defined benefit component, defined contribution component, an A plan, B plan arrangement. We believe each of those plans brings different advantages and risk, and they kind of offset each other. The defined benefit plan you're talking about is a lifetime benefit, pays out a monthly benefit. And it's funded differently than the defined contribution plan. The defined benefit plan is a pot of money that's funded by FedEx. That money is distributed to all the plan recipients. Like any insurance type plan, it's an annuity type plan. The people that die earlier in the plan before, on the lower end of the average life expectancy, that money will be saved and used, of course, to help pay for the people that live longer. So it has a different twist than defined contribution, and we can get to that.
What is the average life expectancy?
Well, average life expectancy varies. White-collar people live longer, quite simply. And so for a white-collar person that retires between 60 and 65, we would expect them to live to be about 86 years old. Blue-collar, about 83. There's no actuarial tables for pilots. There's nothing specific to us. So the general assumption by the actuaries is that we're more in line with white-collar workers.
What is the main risk with the defined benefit plan?
FedEx bankruptcy, quite simply. If you look around the industry, especially the passenger industry, and you look at all the bankruptcies and what happened to their defined benefit plans, obviously not good. So that's the main risk. The plan itself is well funded. We think FedEx future is very bright, so we don't see this as an immediate concern, but it is a concern.
If FedEx were to go into bankruptcy, are there any protections for our pilots?
There is. The Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation is there. The plans are required to fund that insurance plan. That plan, if you were to go into bankruptcy, would provide a benefit, a much reduced benefit. Right now, if you were to be 65 years old when the plan was terminated, that benefit would be about $60,000.
The main risk for the defined benefit plan is FedEx bankruptcy, and we have some protection for that. The other part is the defined contribution plan. Can you talk about that a bit?
You bet. Right now, that's a 7% benefit. It's 7% of the IRS cap, which currently is $265,000. So someone who makes $265,000 or more would receive 7% of that. If you're below that line, 7% of whatever you make. That's the current defined contribution benefit.
Can the IRS compensation limit ever be increased or decreased?
The limit actually has gone up year over year since 1993. So that limit in 93 was reduced by Congress from about 235 in 1992, taken down to 150,000 in 1993. Since 93, it has grown up to be 265,000. That's the inflation effect as the cost of living adjustments have occurred on that limit. So yes, it can increase, but referencing the 93 event, it can also be reduced with the stroke of a pen. So we can't, disregard that.
Are we concerned this could happen again?
Yeah, I would say we're absolutely concerned it could happen again. Obviously, the government has racked up tremendous debt. We know they're going to be looking for revenue. They've used this as a revenue generator in the past, like I just spoke to, and so I think we're very concerned that it could happen again, and it would have an immediate effect.
What are some other risks with our DC plan?
DC plan has a risk of market timing, how the money is invested, what the overall economy is doing during the investment term of this money, how you withdraw it, what kind of life events occur, whether you have divorces or illnesses that cause you to tap into this money. There's a lot of factors that could get at this money, and remember that this money is yours. It's specific to you, unlike the pooled benefit of defined benefit. Now, this is an advantage because it means you can leave the unused money to your heirs, but there's also a disadvantage, which means if these events, market forces, other things conspire to reduce the amount of cash you have and you run out of cash, you ran out of cash. So this is the downside risk.
What considerations are there, Chuck, concerning how long this money might be needed?
The main consideration here is in the defined benefit plan, we're talking about average life expectancy and the people that pass away earlier helping fund the people that come later. In this, because it's individual to you, you have to be thinking, or at least I would assume you would be thinking, that it needs to cover my bet. So I'm looking at life expectancies, not average, but for me individually, and I'd have to assume that if 1 out of 4 people is going to make it to age 90, 1 out of 10 to age 95, I would like to have a protection, in case I'm one of those lucky people that makes it that far. So that requires better funding in this type of plan because you can't work on averages now, you're working on your individual security.
You mentioned life risks associated with our defined contribution plan. Could you expand on that a little, please?
Well, life risk is just that. I mean, life risk are all the things that could cause you to draw on this money or cause this pool of money to be diminished, either in the accumulation phase or the spend down phase. And again, there's no protection beyond this. So when it's spent, it's spent.
So by life risks, you mean severe illness, divorce, bad investment choices and so forth.
All of the above.
How are these risks different than our defined benefit plan?
The defined benefit plan, FedEx assumes the market risk. When the market's down, they make up the difference. And because of the pooled benefit, it's established as a lifetime cushion, a lifetime benefit. This is a huge difference.
It sounds like these plans have different protections and different risks.
They do. I mean, the DC cash protects you in the case of FedEx bankruptcy, which would take your defined benefit plan down to PBGC values. So essentially, the DBE plan then works the other way. It's kind of protecting the DC money in case of the risk we talked about with that. So it gives you a lifetime financial cushion.
Is it enough for these plans to remain as they are?
No, I don't believe it is. I think to really try and mitigate the risk in each of these plans, the defined contribution plan needs to be increased so that we can offset some of the inflation erosion. And the defined benefit plan, like I said, has been in place since 1999. It clearly needs to be improved, certainly for the people that are heading for the door here. So it absolutely has to go up on both sides.
Has the retirement issue come up in prior negotiations?
Yeah, Jim, it does. It's come up obviously in every negotiation. In '99, it came up to try and fix what happened in 1993 with the congressional change to limits. We negotiated the 260 cap for a defined benefit plan. We also put a 6% defined contribution plan in place to try and mitigate the inflation erosion. 2006 comes around. We're trying still to get improvements on both of these. We got a very focused improvement on the defined benefit plan for the people that were going out the door under that contract, the ones that were going to retire. We'll call it a bump. If the guys go into contract, they can see how that works. And then we also got a 1% improvement in defined contribution. So we did do all of that. In 2006, it was said by management negotiators at the time that basically we were deep into negotiations, hundreds of millions of dollars had already been expended, and they suggested that we would do better to come back next time and address this. In fairness, that wasn't a promise, it wasn't a contractual agreement, it was a suggestion. Well, it's next time, so we're trying to get those improvements right now.
What has management's position been on retirement?
Well, it started off with book or just stay with the current contract, no improvements. It was there for quite a while. Finally migrated to where it is now. Now they would like to separate future hires off into a defined contribution only plan with no defined benefit component. They would, for the people that are on the property, offer two choices. One is stay with the current contract with no improvements, and the other one is to sunset the current defined benefit plan and do it with a soft freeze. And a soft freeze is a type of freeze where you would stop the years of service from accruing any further, and you would allow final average earnings to go ahead and increase to the contractual or the contractual cap. So that's what they've proposed at this point, with an increase of defined contribution to go with that. So the current guys would have one of those two choices. The future hires would have no choice. So that's where it is right now. We don't agree with that. We think a balanced plan for everybody is appropriate, and that's what we're attempting to negotiate here.
So a balanced plan that has protections and mitigates risk.
Yes, by using defined benefit and defined contribution in combination.
Chuck, what should we expect in compensation?
Straight up, Jim, we should expect what we've earned. I know what the crews out here do every day all over this world, operating with millions of dollars in aircraft and cargo, lives in their hands. They make decisions that have lasting effect. We provide service for millions of customers all over the planet. We provide value for our shareholders. I have no apologies for asking for what we've earned. I would remind everybody that compensation is more than just an hourly pay rate. It includes benefits, work rules, health care, quality of life issues. So all of that, I believe, makes up our compensation.
Do we anticipate any retro pay or signing bonus?
Absolutely. It's taken a long time to get here, and that time has to be recognized. And yes, we won't accept a settlement that doesn't account for that.
What can our pilots do to help with the process?
If they just keep doing what they've been doing. They've shown up at the events when we've asked them to come. I think about last summer's picketing event, which is kind of hard to imagine right now that these have become annual events. But that was an amazing turnout. So the guys have come when they've been asked. I'd like them to sign up for Textcaster. I'd like to have better ability to communicate with them. And I would encourage them to volunteer. Pilot to Pilot, SPSC, always looking for volunteers.
When is our next major event, Chuck?
Well, on August 12th, it's a Wednesday at the Germantown Community Center, will be the joint council meeting. Stands to be a pretty important meeting. The week before that, like I said, is a critical negotiating session. I think we'll have a lot to report in that meeting, and I would encourage you guys to come.
Do you have any final words for our crew members?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the upcoming round of negotiations is critical, clearly. Patience is gone. That's clear to me every time I walk through the crew room. I mean, that's all I hear. I get it. And I guess, final thought would just be this September is going to be one to remember, either good or bad. And I certainly hope, it's good.
Thank you, Chuck. For more information, go to fdx.alpa.org. Be prepared and get involved. It's your union.